إذاعة الجزائر الدولية، صوتنا في العالم.
With Radio Algeria International, you will not miss a single major political or economic event. Radio Algeria International, our voice in the world.
This is the English service of Radio Algeria International. It's time for the news.
In today's top stories, the 2025 Intra-African Trade Fair continues for the 5th day at the Pan-Maritime Exhibition Hall in Algiers with a rich program, including workshops as well as economic and thematic meetings. An agreement of cooperation was signed between Algeria and Uganda, consisting of Algeria's support for the rehabilitation of a hospital in Uganda. A number of Algerian public and private companies have signed several agreements as part of the IATF 2025 with their African counterparts, worth a total of $310 million. Hello and welcome to Radio Algeria International. I'm Jamal Samani. The 4th edition of the Intra-African Trade Fair, IATF 2025, held under the slogan Bridges to New Opportunities, continues today, Monday, at the Pan-Maritime Exhibition Hall in Algiers, with a program featuring several official visits, the signing of partnership agreements, and economic and thematic meetings. It features the signing of future agreements and visits by Algerian and foreign officials. An Algerian-Zimbabwe economic dialogue is high on the agenda. Alongside these activities, several events are still being held at the exhibition center, including the African Research and Innovation Hub, the African Motor Show, AU Youth Startup, and Creative Africa NADAX. On the 5th day of the 2025 IATF, the spot is on African infrastructure as the 5th Intra-African Engineering, Procurement and Construction Workshop was held today at the Suffix. Our reporter Sabika attended the workshop and had this report.
Organized by Afreximbank, the 5th Intra-African Engineering, Procurement and Construction Workshop has been held on the sidelines of the 4th Intra-African Trade Fair 2025 under the theme Empowering African Contractors, Accelerating Infrastructure Development in Africa. The high-level gathering brought together EPC companies, government officials, central banks and financial institutions from across Africa and the Caribbean. The aim was to highlight contractual opportunities, strengthen local content development and showcase Afreximbank initiatives in supporting African contractors. Mr. Juayo Faria, Executive Director in the sector from Angola, spoke about the importance of the support of local commercial banks to EPCs in the continent as a push for African infrastructure.
So sometimes it's better to open up to the potential of partnership to be able to deliver. So those are the two ways the bank can help you. If you have an expertise, we can put you into contact and in partnership with another person in another country to execute. If you need the financing directly, we have an SME program within the bank which we can support you with your own commercial banks. True, because we cannot be everywhere at every time. Afrexim Bank brings additionality. We do not cannibalize. So we work with local institutions to ensure the financing is delivered to support African build Africa.
The Director and Global Head of Project and Asset-Based Finance at Afreximbank, Ms. Helen Brew, may shed light on the importance of easing the regulations of the African Continental Free Trade Area to make intra-African EPC projects more implementable.
I mean, intra-African trade on the continent is at about 14%. And the mandate of the ESCFTA is to increase that to 40% by 2040. There are three ways to do that, right? You can focus on liberalization of tariffs, right? But then there's also the infrastructure piece, because if people cannot move freely from one point to another, then the ultimate goal of the AFCFTA is defeated. And there's finally this logistics and transportation. Now, the good thing is that Afreximbank supports the AFCFTA agenda across all of these three metrics that I mentioned.
Rida Bushanan, an Algerian manager in the Algerian EPC market, spoke about Algeria's potential in construction materials.
I think that by law, the law sometimes doesn't allow you to bring within Africa. Now there is an opening, so we can use, because Algeria is already a member in many African banks, so we can use them to get the finance from them and to use them through our banks.
It's less risky.
Yeah, it's maybe it's less risky, but it costs. Also, there is some cost. But still, when you have the finance, you have to explore this field and to use the international bank, because it can help a lot to deliver a big project.
At the end of the 5th Intra-African Engineering, Procurement and Construction Workshop, a deal was signed between Afreximbank and South Africa to establish a project preparation facility to provide early-stage preparatory financing to advancing projects from concept to bankability, with an initial commitment of $20 million, with $5 million from Afreximbank and 15 from South Africa. Asia Bakar to Radio Algeria International, the Exhibition Hall, Algiers.
You're still listening to Radio Algeria International. Now our reporter Mohamed Khatel is in the Pan-Maritime Exhibition Hall to give us the latest news about the Intra-African Trade Fair. Mohamed, how is it going there on the 5th day?
Hello, Jamal. Hello, dear listeners. As a matter of fact, the momentum is kept. 5 days after the opening of the Intra-African Trade Fair, IATF 2025, hosted by Algeria. Visitors are still coming in large numbers to see the various African products displayed and seek to establish partnerships or strike deals in various fields of endeavor. The 5th day of the IATF 2025 saw the signing of several contracts and agreements, foremost of which is the deal signed between Afreximbank and South Africa, providing for the financing project. The contract is worth $20 million. In addition to that, a series of workshops and masterclasses were held to tackle specialized topics and themes. The 4th edition of IATF will wind up in 2 days' time, that is next Wednesday, and in the meantime, Radio Algeria International is still committed to bring you, dear listeners, the latest news and inform you about the various activities of the fair. From SATEX International Exhibition Center, this is Mohamed Khatel reporting for Radio Algeria International. Over to you, Jamal.
Yes, Mohamed, thank you so much for the details. You were live from SAFEX. Several major agreements were signed on the sidelines of the IATF 2025 in Algiers, reflecting Algiers' growing role in boosting intra-African trade and strengthening economic integration across the continent. Mas'ud Shafi has the details.
An agreement worth $480 million was signed at the IATF 2025 between Algeria's GISB Electric and Sojelex to supply West African markets with Algerian electrical equipment. The deal includes $300 million in exports to Senegal and Ivory Coast over 3 years and $180 million in industrial investments in both countries, highlighting Algeria's expertise and growing role in meeting Africa's rising demand for electrical industries. A number of Algerian public and private companies have as well signed several agreements with their African counterparts from Tunisia, Senegal, Libya, Mauritania, Ivory Coast and Egypt, worth a total of $310 million. In the same context, an agreement of cooperation was signed between the Algerian government and the Ugandan government, consisting of Algeria's support for the rehabilitation of a hospital in Uganda, according to the statement of the Ugandan Minister of Finance, Matika Kisaija.
Then now coming to the hospital, again, really we send, the Uganda will send full thanks for the people and the government of this country, because that hospital surely is going to help in treating or educating the people in Uganda. So thank you very much indeed. This is really friendship that we should not ever in my view, ever go away. So we could move, and everybody should be really proud and not fearful anyone, so that we really can now proceed to develop our two countries very fast.
A protocol of understanding was also signed with Kenya's National Oil Corporation, NOC, to supply the Kenyan market with oil, gas and petroleum products, as well as to carry out joint projects in the field of oil production and exploration.
Now, a $300 million agreement has been signed at the Pan Maritime Exhibition Hall to provide Nigeria with 2 million electronic payment terminals on the sidelines of the 4th edition of the IATF 2025. In a statement to the reporters following the signing of the agreement, the Minister of Posts and Telecommunications, Sidali Zarouki, announced a $300 million deal with a Chinese partner to supply Nigeria with 2 million electronic payment terminals, highlighting plans to double the amount next year and emphasizing Algeria's skilled resources driving national African development.
Today we are witnessing the signing of an agreement between the company Inatel and its Chinese partner for the manufacturing of TPE electronic payment terminals, which will be delivered to the friendly country of Nigeria in a first phase, with a contract exceeding $300 million to supply 2 million TPEs. This contract is expected to double next year to supply no fewer than 5 million TPEs, with an even larger contract. All this falls within the guidelines of the President of the Republic to promote national production, but also within the effort to develop Africa together and to build our African future with mutual confidence. The integration rate to date, as announced, is no less than 60%. Today, once again, we are proud to have competent Algerian resources that meet all challenges and succeed in offering competitive products.
Now, Algerian Foreign Trade Minister Kamal Erzik has carried out an inspection visit to the pavilions of the Intra-African Trade Fair 2025. In a statement to the press on the sidelines of a tour he made to the pavilions of Tunisia and Mauritanian companies, the minister emphasized that the visit aimed to follow up on trade development with Tunisia and Mauritania, while also highlighting strong relations, plans to build integrated regional markets, encouragement for youth enterprises, and praise for Algerian startups securing African cooperation through government efforts and presidential policy.
I took the opportunity to visit the pavilion of our Mauritanian brothers on the path of integration between these countries, and it is a message to prove the depth of the relations existing between these countries and the prospect that we agreed upon, and to achieve them in order to reach Algerian, Tunisian, Mauritanian and Libyan markets in the future, integrated and harmonious, serving the objectives of these 4 countries. At the same time, I took the opportunity to visit some Algerian pavilions as encouragement from us to these young people, these enterprises, for more work and for going out to African markets. I was very pleased with the youth enterprises specialized in digitization and specialized in startups, which have begun to obtain some promises and agreements with our African brothers. And this is something encouraging because it is a result and fruit of the efforts exerted by the government and the implementation of the policy of the President in this field.
At the Intra-African Trade Fair in Algiers, the Mansa Digital Initiative was presented as one of the most ambitious projects to transform trade in Africa. Maureen Mba, Program Director at Afreximbank, explained that the platform seeks to guarantee credible information about African entities, reduce information asymmetry, and build investor confidence, positioning itself as a true passport to trade and investment on the continent. Sarah Alel interviewed Maureen Mba to give us more information about the initiative.
In the framework of the Intra-African Trade Fair IATF 2025 held in Algiers, a workshop dedicated to the Mansa initiative was held. We spoke with Maureen Mba, director of this initiative of the African Export-Import Bank, Afreximbank. Ms. Mba, thank you for joining us. To begin with, could you briefly explain what the Mansa Digital Initiative is and what its main purpose is?
No, thank you for having me. My name is Maureen Mba, and I head the Mansa Digital Initiative of the bank. And of course, you may want to know that Mansa is that child of destiny, which actually was established by the bank to address the challenges that impede trade growth in Africa, and of course trade with the rest of the world. You must have seen our strapline when you were coming in that speaks to describing Mansa at that platform that speaks to passport to trade and investment. So without information, you cannot do any transaction. You cannot transact any business. Information is key in every transaction. So that is what Mansa is all about, making sure that we have credible and authentic information about our African entity.
You mentioned that the initiative aims to overcome certain challenges around the perception of the continent. What are the specific objectives of Mansa in that regard?
Number one, to eliminate the global risk perception of doing business in Africa. Number two, to reduce the information asymmetry, within the continent. Number three, to start building investors' confidence, because a lot has happened in recent times where we experienced the de-risking of African financial institutions, where non-African financial institutions have departed the continent, saying that it's quite a large sum of money to do compliance in the continent. And there are no information about African entities. Where there are information, they are inadequate. So that is why Mansa has been put in place to ensure that we have information about our African entities, irrespective of which sector of the economy, whether you're a financial institution, whether you're corporate, whether you're an SME.
During the workshop, we talked about the African Entity Identifier. What is this new code about, and what role will it play in the future of trade in Africa?
Yeah, absolutely. That is the AEI code, which actually, once you onboard your profile on Mansa, you automatically assign an AEI code. That AEI code will be used to trace any illicit acts under your business or under your name. So the FATAFUG, the Financial Action Task Force, have come up with, they issued the 40 recommendations, and recommendation 16 speaks to this unique identifier. Today you have the BIC for SWIFT messages, you have the LEI for the European Union, which actually takes care of transactions. And of course, in Africa, we will come up with the AEI, which is the African Entity Identifier, which is a unique identifier for every transaction in Africa. So we are campaigning for the buy-in. We're working with the African Union. We're working with the African Continental Free Trade Agreement area to make sure that this becomes the unique identifier for all African entities. Number one, for trust, transparency, and of course to ensure that traceability of any illicit activity is could be identified.
The conversation with Maureen Mba makes it clear that the Mansa Digital Initiative is not simply a technological tool, but a strategic instrument to transform the way Africa connects with the world. Its focus on transparency, reducing information asymmetries, and building trust aims to break down stigmas that for decades have limited trade and investment on the continent. The introduction of the African Entity Identifier reinforces this vision, providing a modern and traceable framework for transactions. On a stage such as the IATF 2025 in Algiers, it is clear that Mansa is positioned as a key pillar for African economic integration and for projecting the continent more solidly into global markets. From Safex Algiers, Sarah Lal for Radio Algeria International.
Now, artificial intelligence, or AI, is at or as it is commonly known, is a quick evolving technology that is taking over on human intelligence in many sectors and fields. Artificial intelligence is broadly present at the Intra-African Trade Fair 2025, hosted by Algeria, with several panels